nor will I ever understand what it was that she saw through her eyes in the mirror. I don't think any of us can ever understand that.
Two voices lit up the airwaves and still echo today. Dionne Warwick melted hearts with Velvet Soul, while Karen Carpenter poured out pure crystal emotion. Different in sound, yet united in impact, these women shaped an entire generation of listeners who still hum their timeless hits. Their songs painted memories of heartbreak late night, drives, reunions, and quiet thinking. Record stores stacked their albums to the ceiling, and radio stations could not get enough of them. Warwick smiling behind a microphone on television specials looked like royalty in glitter gowns. Carpenter seated at her polished drum kit, surprised crowds with gentle vocals paired with thunderous rhythms, and fans cheered so loud the rafters shook. Their influence traveled worldwide as cassette tapes crossed oceans tucked into care packages for soldiers and college students abroad. In living rooms from Tokyo to Rio, families gathered around bulky stereos and let those voices turn ordinary nights into memories worth keeping. When Warwick soared through Walk On By, or I Say a Little Prayer, audiences felt classy and bold. When Carpenter whispered Close to You, or Yesterday, once more the room fell silent in awe. Warwick lifted Burt Bacharach melodies sky high, and Carpenter made the simplest line feel like deep poetry. Their paths rarely crossed on stage, yet the respect they shared ran deep. Decades after Karen left this world, Dionne lifts the curtain not for gossip, but for love. This revelation carries a bittersweet pulse. What follows is not a tale of glitter alone, but a story of hidden grief, fierce admiration, and a friendship that refuses to fade. A voice that watched it all. Dionne Warwick stands tall in American music history. Over 6 decades, she has sold more than 100 million records and claimed 5 Grammy trophies, while stacking more than 50 hits on the Billboard charts. Starting in the 1960s, she carved her own lane blending pop, soul, and rhythm and blues, while teaming with Dreamweaver's Burt Bacharach and Hal David. Beyond the charts, Dionne became a trailblazer, one of the first black women to top mainstream pop lists without watering down her style. She opened doors for future icons and proved that authenticity draws crowds. She rose during a wild and changing era, when the nation grappled with civil rights protests, war headlines, and a youth-quake transforming culture. Dionne saw the price of fame pressure and harsh critics on many artists. She speaks openly about those wounds even in her own life, and her fearless honesty still stuns the room. For younger singers, she became a mentor urging realness over glitter. She reminded them that every song should carry heart more than hype. Dionne's strength comes not only from her fame, but from her long journey. She has watched many stars rocket up and crash down, some even destroyed by the very system that once praised them. In Karen, she sensed a soul who could not find peace inside success. Her memories are not rumor, but lived experience and deep empathy. Behind Dionne's glittering career lay a quiet bond that shaped her most private reflections, a friendship in the shadows. Dionne and Karen shared a friendship that never begged for cameras. It grew slowly through mutual praise rooted in music and nourished by emotional understanding. Both women carried the heavy weight of fame, yet their bond thrived away from bright lights. By the time the Carpenters hit big in the early 1970s, Dionne was already a household name and a touring powerhouse. She heard in Karen's voice a softness and vulnerability that pierced her heart and reminded her of sunrise choir rehearsals at church. Their professional paths crossed at award shows, recording studios, charity telethons, and television tapings. But real warmth grew in whispered backstage chats and knowing glances at crowded banquets. Their styles differed, yet they both prized craft and subtle feeling over flashy tricks. Neither needed fireworks or high kicks to make a listener cry. That shared value tied them closer. Karen's ability to rap a lyric in quiet power reminded Dionne of her own sessions with Bacharach and David, where every breath counted as much as every note. They did not spend every day together, yet a steady respect bloomed, strengthened by the truth that the entertainment world loved an image more than a person's well-being. Inside that shared emotional ground, their friendship lived not loud but true. Dionne never tried to rescue Karen. She simply stayed present. In a place ruled by masked, Dionne was one of the few with whom Karen could drop hers. Over time, Dionne sensed fragile ground beneath Karen's calm surface. Her humility mixed with self-denial made her even more endearing and exposed her gentle state. It was hard in that shiny world to grant mercy to someone labeled perfect, yet Karen did not view herself that way. For all the praise about her golden voice, Dionne saw the quietly desperate woman fighting for grace in a realm that demanded perfection. Their story never fed tabloids, yet it etched itself on Dionne's heart. After Karen passing in 1983, Dionne kept singing her praises. She told interviewers about Karen's kindness, humor, and silent strength each time her name arose. She stayed close with Richard Carpenter, which deepened her tie to the family, and allowed Dionne to honor Karen's legacy without hollow gestures. To Dionne, Karen's memory never froze in tragedy, but in the bright moments they shared, laughing over weak hotel coffee or trading harmony ideas in a dim hallway. True friendship does not need spotlights. It feels alive in quiet spaces. A quiet encounter. Late in 1982, Dionne checked into the Regency Hotel in New York City for a run of concerts and high-pressure meetings. Fate staged a heartbreaking reunion inside the gilded lobby. She bumped into Karen Carpenter, whom she loved and admired. The shock was instant. Karen, once lively, now appeared painfully thin and fragile. Dionne's heartbeat quickened as she searched Karen's eyes for the sparkle she remembered. At that moment, Dionne had no clue about the hidden battle raging inside Karen's body. She did not know anorexia nervosa had drained Karen's strength and spirit. The sight cut deep. It was more than a physical change. It was proof that something deadly serious lurked behind the polished image. Dionne refused to let the meeting end with polite smiles and waves. She gently pressed Karen's hand and arranged to visit her suite the next afternoon. That promised visit stretched into 4 powerful hours that stayed with Dionne forever. Behind closed doors, Karen finally spoke of her health. She said she was under a New York doctor. Care was monitoring her heart and was fighting to heal. She admitted food had become the enemy, yet she believed she could rebuild trust with her body and return to the studio. Her voice held a quiet but fierce promise that she would beat the disease and live to record again. Dionne believed her because the conviction sounded real, and because hope flickered in Karen's tired eyes. Karen was honest, vulnerable, yet still hopeful. Few people ever saw that side, and for Dionne the mix of courage and fragility was both uplifting and shattering. When Dionne left the suite, she prayed Karen would win her fight. Even now she remembers every word, every pause, every gentle laugh they shared that day. That private exchange became a personal anchor, a shining reminder that behind famous smiles can hide silent storms. Dionne later said that meeting reminded her why compassion must guide every note she sings. She shares that lesson with young singers today, telling them the story of Karen, not to scare them, but to spark empathy before applause. Destiny threw Dionne Warwick and Karen Carpenter together once more just a month later, in January 1983, during a glamorous photo shoot in Los Angeles. Karen snuck up, tapped Dionne's shoulder, and burst out laughing when Dionne spun around in shock. The room brightened as the stage lights had switched on, and for a precious moment everything felt light again. Karen looked healthier, her cheeks fuller, and her eyes sparkling with real joy. She joked, "I haven't asked again," which sent both women into rolling laughter. Proof that hope was inching back into Karen's life. They swapped stories, replayed old memories, and hugged like sisters reuniting after years apart. Dionne felt relief flood her heart because a change seemed genuine and solid, not a quick illusion. Driving home that night, Dionne could almost taste a new beginning for a friend. Maybe, just maybe, Karen was beating the shadows that had haunted her for so long. A tiny flame of optimism burned bright, if only for a heartbeat. But tragedy crashed through that fragile hope far too soon. On February 4th, 1983, Karen Carpenter's heart suddenly stopped after years of wrestling with anorexia, and she was only 32. The news slammed into Dionne like a wave, especially after those joyful meetings that felt so promising. At the funeral, Dionne watched Karen's loved ones trade tears for warm stories, choosing to celebrate the sunshine Karen spread instead of sinking into pure sorrow. Even while pain pulsed in her chest, Dionne clung to one comfort. The singer's spirit would keep soaring every time a Carpenter's record spun. She still hears Karen's gentle laugh in quiet moments and remembers that even the brightest soul can carry silent weights. The shelved solo album. In 1979, Karen Carpenter made a daring choice and booked studio time under her own name. free from the famous Carpenter's banner. After years of fronting the beloved brother-sister act, she craved a lane that belonged only to her. A&M Records approved, and legendary producer Phil Ramone cheered her on. So Karen jetted to New York City to chase a bold new sound. Top session players lined up, and the track shimmered with sleek pop, soft rock, and adult contemporary grooves, more confident and sultry than anything fans had heard before. For Karen, this was not just an experiment. It was a declaration that she was more than half of a wholesome duo. Yet hurdles rose fast. By early 1980, the finished album faced fierce pushback, especially from brother Richard Carpenter and nervous A&M executives. They worried the fresh style swerved too far from the polished Carpenter's brand that had minted gold and platinum plaques. Richard, still healing from his own battles with prescription meds, openly disliked the direction. Label leaders, wary of shaking a proven formula, chose the safest path. They locked the master tapes in a vault and left Karen devastated. Her brave leap toward independence was halted by the very machine that once applauded her every note. The shelving cut deep. Karen returned to recording with Richard, but invisible bruises lingered. She had stepped outside her comfort zone and trusted her own ear, only to be told her solo voice didn't fit the company mold. She flew back to Los Angeles, tapes in hand and confidence dented. Interviews hinted at her disappointment, yet she rarely named names in public. Silence became another heavy costume she wore. That pattern echoed her whole career. The face and voice of a powerhouse group, yet rarely granted full control over image or direction. 13 long years later, in 1996, A&M finally lifted the lid on the lost treasure and released the album simply titled Karen Carpenter. Listeners discovered a richer, bolder Karen, still crystal clear, but with quiet fire and self-willed edge. Tracks such as If I Had You and My Body Keeps Changing My Mind revealed an artist eager to step outside the Carpenter's comfort zone and claim space in a changing music world. Its late arrival felt bittersweet, but it gave fans a window into who Karen might have become if she had been allowed to keep evolving. Today, the record stands as proof of her resilience and artistic courage, even when industry walls closed in. Industry perfectionism and image control. During the 1970s, record companies ruled with ironclad marketing plans, and women, especially pop singers, were boxed into rigid, spotless personas. Karen Carpenter was packaged as a picture of gentle femininity, sweet smile, neat outfits, soft voice, and perfect poise. Those traits were genuine parts of her nature, yet executives polished them until nothing rough remained. The pressure stretched far beyond stage lights. Managers scrutinized wardrobe, weight, posture, and even the tilt of her head, all to keep a flawless, family-friendly shine. Success for female artists was tied tightly to appearing passive, non-threatening, and conventionally beautiful, unlike many male stars who roamed free with their image. Karen, kind-hearted and eager to please, felt that weight every day. When she dared to record her independent album with Phil Ramone, gatekeepers bristled. To them, this shift jeopardized the tidy, lucrative story cultivated around the Carpenters. She was not alone. Many women who sought reinvention or complexity were shoved back toward simplicity. Innovation often mattered less than predictable image, and the rules became so ingrained they felt invisible but powerful. Karen silently carried those demands. Stay slim, smile wide, sing sweet, never rock the boat. While she longed for creative freedom, she kept bumping into an impossible ideal of perfection that measured her value by looks and gentleness, not only by talent. Behind her clear vocals and polite interviews lay a quiet fight for agency that far too many never saw. Pressure ruled the pop scene of the 1970s, and it squeezed Karen Carpenter the hardest. Control over image, voice, and even body was sold as a ticket to glory, yet the price turned deadly. Family life set the tone long before bright lights flashed. Inside the Carpenter home, every smile was rehearsed, and every moment had to look perfect. Family dynamics under scrutiny. Biographers say Agnes Carpenter cared more about polish than tenderness. Richard, the older son, wore the prodigy crown, while Karen often stood in his shadow, struggling for a single word of praise. Interviews from that era show Karen glowing whenever her brother was cheered, yet shrinking when her own feats drew only mild nods. Neighbors saw a flawless suburban picture, but behind closed doors emotion stayed locked away. Crying felt like breaking the rules, so Karen hid her worries and tried even harder to please. Health warnings got hushed and needs were brushed aside because flaws might dent the Carpenter brand. The family pushed marriage success and spotless public smiles as proof of worth. Karen soaked up this message until she called herself just a drummer, even though her velvet contralto drove the group's biggest hits. Years of strict discipline and never-ending comparisons taught her to downplay every talent and mute every hurt. She longed for approval, especially from her mother, yet it rarely came in ways that mattered. The gap left by that missing warmth fed an obsession with looking thinner, tighter, more controlled. Misunderstanding anorexia. During the 1970s and early 1980s, anorexia nervosa was a mystery to most doctors and almost everyone else. Many saw sudden weight loss as simple willpower or even healthy dedication. Thin bodies won headlines and compliments while the hidden illness kept festering. Karen's shrinking frame first drew cheers. Magazine writers praised her new look, and some physicians called it proof of discipline. Fashion trends loved slender silhouettes, so warning signs slid past unchecked. Even when she grew weak on stage, the press focused on her crystal voice instead of her fading strength. Treatment centers were rare and research scarce. When Karen turned to psychotherapist Stephen Levenkron, she found empathy, but not a full medical team. Later, internist Jerome Marcus tried intravenous nutrition, yet years of starvation had already strained her heart. Specialists disagreed on how to help, and care felt scattered like dropped sheet music. Only after Karen's death on 4 February 1983 did the world snap awake. Shock raced through newsrooms, talk shows, and living rooms. For the first time, anorexia nervosa was framed as a lethal mental health emergency, not a quirky diet. Her loss changed how people talked about food control and fame. Revival of Superstar. In 1987, filmmaker Todd Haynes shook audiences with Superstar: The Karen Carpenter Story. He used Barbie dolls to tell her life, and the plastic smiles clashed painfully with the real agony she faced. The short film pictured Agnes as cold, Richard as controlling, and the industry as a cold machine demanding perfection. Haynes mixed voiceovers with stark text, and critics gasped at scenes of rapid weight loss and lonely hotel rooms. The film blasted the silence around body image and showed how outside praise can drown a pleading inner voice. Its raw honesty sparked lawsuits, and it vanished from screens almost as fast as it appeared, yet underground copies kept the message alive. Re-examining Karen's legacy. Decades later, fans view Karen through a deeper, kinder lens. Online documentaries like Karen Carpenter Starving for Perfection, along with essays on YouTube and TikTok, celebrate her artistry while exposing the crushing load she carried. Society now calls anorexia a complex illness shaped by family culture and industry forces. Support groups share Karen's story as a warning that untreated pain will surface in dangerous ways. Mental health advocates point to her journey. To stress early helps self-advocacy and open talk about feelings. Music scholars also revisit her shelved solo album, viewing it as a bold stand against tight industry boxes. Think pieces and podcasts argue she was not passive, but quietly brave, pushing back against a male-dominated system that feared change. In the era of Me Too, her unfinished transformation shines as proof that women have the right to own their sound and story. Dionne's final reflections. Through all the noise, one voice never forgot the friend behind the legend. Dionne Warwick writes in Little Girl Blue: The Life of Karen Carpenter that Karen remains the voice that still makes her smile. Dionne loves to recall how Karen's version of knowing when to leave sparked their first chat, followed by a friendship built on mutual respect. In later interviews, Dionne mourned the unfair speed of Karen's passing. She describes the loss as heartbreaking because a gentle soul left far too soon. Dionne keeps most tributes private, guarding the memories they shared away from flashing cameras. She believes Karen's true legacy lives not only in vinyl grooves, but in the quiet ties of care that outlast every chart position. The world now rushes to honor what Dionne always knew. Karen Carpenter was more than a golden voice. She was a bright person navigating impossible standards while quietly searching for room to breathe. Her life still warns us that hidden struggles demand honest help, and her courage keeps echoing each time a new listener presses play.